That's nearly $2 billion, and that's money that's going to be spent on improving safety, enhancing mobility, and improving economic growth and development in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, and with this historic funding from the legislature, new construction will be popping up all over Mississippi.
MDOT presents the Extra Mile Podcast.
Men and women of the Department of Transportation are up to the task and up to make sure that we deliver a product that the taxpayers can be proud of. So I'm ready for us to go to work.
Welcome into another edition of the Extra Mile Podcast presented by the Mississippi Department of Transportation. I'm MDOT Deputy Director of Public Affairs, Paul Catul, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Will Kraft. He is the Director of Public Affairs at the Mississippi Department of Transportation, and it's been several months since we've taken the show on the road. After a long legislative session, we decided we want to get down to the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
Oh, yeah.
And we are at the Gulfport Transit Center, and we are here to speak with Kevin Coggin, who is the Executive Director of the Coast Transit Authority. Kevin, thank you so much for hosting us today.
It's my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So before the show, we were kind of talking a little bit about this building. So can you kind of tell us where we're at?
Very interesting building. It was built in 1966. There is architectural, historical significance. Heavily damaged in Katrina, and we invested $10 million of U.S. DOT money and rebuilt this building, and it's called Adaptive Reuse. It was the headquarters building of the Harrison County Library System, and we converted it over to the hub of transit operations in Gulfport, and we've got some lease space upstairs. A beautiful building. The community was really happy that we restored it, and it is now on the U.S. Park Service list of historic places.
And it's
Awesome.
beautiful. Yeah. I know you guys are real proud of it. Just walking around, first time I've ever been in here, and it is incredible. It's a good-looking facility. Loads and loads of history. You guys got the walls decorated with lots of things going on. What was the right out front here that you mentioned? Captain Jones, I think. Was that right?
Captain Jones was the founder of the city of Gulfport. He was a big businessman, big in lumber, and you can see some renderings, murals, and whatnot over there. There's a benefactor, and actually he donated this piece of property to the city of Gulfport that this building was built on. So him and his wife were tremendous in supporting people and helping found Gulfport.
And they're still contributing,
Absolutely.
I mean, indirectly, by all means. And beautiful, just to keep talking about the building and the history of it. So, again, there's loads of history on the walls, paintings, and beautiful works of art that kind of detail a lot of these things. And then we take a look behind the director here, and there's this beautiful background for us of the what's the word I'm looking for? The marine facility over there.
Yeah,
the
Mississippi Aquarium.
Aquarium. Could not think of the aquarium. We've got the dolphins spouting out some water right here behind us, and it's like an open invitation to go explore that direction right now. We're going to go check it out as soon as we wrap up for sure. But, yeah, man, awesome building. It's very nice down here.
For sure. So do you just want to tell us what is the Coast Transit Authority? We'll get right to it.
We've been serving the Gulf Coast with public transit services since 1972. Do a lot of things. We're evolving as time goes on and the community evolves. We do fixed route bus service. We do a lot of categorized as demand response. That's kind of a catch-all. Senior citizen services for people with disabilities. We bring seniors to centers every day, grocery shopping once a week, doctor's appointments 3 times a week. We're really starting to do a lot of access to health care, transportation, both physical and mental health care. That's really taken off like a rocket.
Sure.
With the amount of money that's being pumped into, especially mental health care, as part of the federal gun control bill. Believe it or not, there was a lot of focus on mental health, and they're really pumping a lot of money into mental health, which should be. So
Sure.
We're helping people access that. We do van pool transportation, work transportation on the I-10 corridor. A lot of people don't realize we do that. That's significant. We're operating in Panhandle of Florida, lower counties of Alabama, lower counties of Mississippi, and the New Orleans, Chalmette area, Slidell of Louisiana, bringing people to work in Mississippi every day. So we do a lot of things. We basically, I talked about how we've evolved over time. whatever the community needs us to do, we try and position ourselves to do that.
And I did not realize, so you guys are actually offering services across state lines. So
That's right.
y'all have done something right, apparently, to grow to that nature over the years.
We like to think so. We don't have geographical boundaries. Typically, we're an urban transit system. They are owned, operated by cities, county, states. For instance, Jackson Transit is operated by the city of Jackson, and Hattiesburg the same. We're a true independent regional transportation service. So we're set up kind of like a public utility. We're a commission. So
Okay.
we really have a lot of flexibility in the things that we are able to do.
That's really neat, yeah. I
That
didn't realize
is.
that at all. And the van pool, so that's just to and from work, right?
Right. We have a private company that does that, Enterprise Commute. They do a great job. So there's a lot of things that the private sector can and do much better than we can. And we realized that early on. It was a result of Hurricane Katrina. Working with Huntington Ingalls, we were asked to work with them to help them reestablish their workforce. So we had the pleasure of working with the largest single employer in the state of Mississippi to start our van pool program. And, I was talking to a consultant about it, and he highly recommended we look at letting the private sector do that. And it works great. That's all they do. They're experts in it. And it's our brand. It's Coast Commuter, and we pay them for it. It's very successful.
That's awesome.
That's good stuff. So, so at MDOT, we, touch public transit. Obviously, you provide public transit. So how do you kind of interface with the Mississippi Department of Transportation?
So we have had historically a very good working relationship with MDOT Public Transit. They have been very helpful. The short version is we're of a size where we work directly with Federal Transit Administration. Region 4 is the largest FTA region in their Atlanta office. We're what's called a direct recipient. So money is programmed through FTA directly to us. And so we're not under the umbrella of MDOT Public Transit, and so they really don't have to be involved in urban transit systems, but they do.
Sure.
And it has been a really great working relationship, and I appreciate the MDOT, the board, and executive management. And I'm not just saying this because I've been executive director at CTA since 2003, a long time. Work Charles Carr is phenomenal,
Oh, yeah.
the director of the intermodal planning office, and it just, we have, CTA and the Gulf Coast has been a great beneficiary of MDOT's help with, making sure we provide a good urban system for the Gulf Coast all these years. I really appreciate their help and their friendship.
Absolutely. Man, we appreciate the kind words. Speaking of that, kind of the crossover and work between us, public transit has been something that, as you've mentioned, you guys have been working on for a long time and have obviously built such a great enterprise and reputation. But it seems like it's even picking up more steam with the legislature this past session putting an additional $30 million into MDOT's multimodal fund. Of which public transit, operations. I know you guys talked about you're so large, you're kind of a direct recipient from the federal. But hey, I think what is that they say? All a rising tide raises all ships. So
Yeah, we're very appreciative of the Gulf Coast delegation, and they saw the need to really invest in intermodalism, and a lot of states don't do that. And MDOT is one of the few states that funds public transit directly, and the legislature is now coming in and providing additional funding. Well, historically, MDOT took $10 million out of their general money and funded the multimodal funding program, which is airports, seaports, railroads, and public transit. And we've been a beneficiary of that, and it's been a long time since there has been an increase in investment in that. So for the legislature to come up this time and put that additional funding is really significant, and we really appreciate it.
absolutely.
That's awesome that we can all kind of work together for a really good thing. So you mentioned it, you've been executive director since 2003, and I have in my notes that 2 years in, Hurricane Katrina hit. I know that's not a really pleasant thing to talk about, but kind of what was it like back then when Katrina hit the coast?
So I've been with Coast Transit since 1989, and I was appointed executive director in 2003.
Wow.
And I used to do these all these lengthy bios, when I go speak or people ask me for my bio, and my bio simply says now that I'm a veteran of hurricanes, oil spills, pandemics, and economic strife.
It's true.
And you just, you have to work at it, and it's a lot of crisis management, especially living here with hurricanes, the devastation. And, when I was appointed in 2003, there was, we had some political issues and some financial issues, and I'm blessed to have a really good, dedicated board of commissioners who are mission-oriented, and we worked together and stabilized the local political support and financial support in 2003, and then 2005 comes and just, washes all that off the map, literally.
Yeah.
Our best route was right here on Highway 90. We were carrying about, I think, it was like 250,000 passengers a year on Highway 90, and Highway 90 was wiped out. But we used that as an opportunity to rebuild the system and get the money, and went, and our federal delegation was tremendous, and MDOT was tremendous in helping us, and we totally rebuilt the entire system, which set the stage for where we are today with rebuilding our main facility, which was in bad shape, and all new buses, and just kind of refreshed our business model. And we had some really smart people come in, and consultants, and help us reconfigure what the service looked like. So all of that in that period from 2005 to 7 set the stage for the success we have today. And of course, then you had the Great Recession in 2008, and oil spills, and then the pandemic, and
to be honest with you, Shell Oil will be glad to hear this, but I almost forgot about the oil spill with everything else that's happening.
It's we've benefited from that. So
yeah, and I forget the BP. I said Shell, I guess BP. Yeah. We got the settlement, and that is still being invested back into the state. But
that's
Lord,
right.
I almost forgot about it with everything else that's happened.
That's right.
Well, and then Katrina obviously being one of the worst of the worst, but hurricane season is something that we deal with annually. I know MDOT, we're kind of in the middle of our hurricane prep campaign right now, getting the word out. What does that kind of look like for you right now as far as transit is concerned?
Well, unfortunately, we have a lot of experience. We don't do tabletop exercises because of, however you want to look at it, probably fortunately, we have a lot of these little low-level events like tropical storms, so we're constantly testing our system and what we do, and we're actually ESF 1, Emergency Support Function 1 at the Harrison County Emergency Management Agency. We have a seat in the Emergency Operations Center, and when they activate it, and we're there managing all ground transportation needs for Harrison County. Okay. And we're committed to providing evacuation transportation when the EMA calls for evacuation. And there's 5 big shelters that are self-contained shelters that they use. People can stay long-term if they need to. So we transport to the shelters, and then after the event, we transport people back. And so what we learned in Katrina that was different, we used to be kind of stressed out when there was an evacuation. But in Katrina, the community was devastated. And people lost their houses, their cars, their jobs. And so we devised a bunch of different new routes specific for those people. They were living in schools and whatnot to connect them to recovery efforts. They got to get FEMA and MEMA and the government and get back on their feet. So that is an unknown that you can't really plan for because every storm is different. So you don't know what it's going to do to the community. But we learned that, and now when we do these evacuations, which is usually you bring them to a shelter one day and bring them home the next day, that's not a big deal.
Right.
But it could be a lot worse.
Sure.
And we learned a lot of things from Katrina. The most important thing I learned personally was to communicate to the community what we're doing and what we can do. and be more helpful. And we weren't in the emergency management agency group prior to Katrina, but we are now, and that's another good thing that came out of it. They saw what we did, and they realized how important it is. And so, as a community, we learn from these things.
I bet so.
Absolutely. So we have a subject matter expert here, and one of our main messages, or our main message during hurricane season is have a plan, know your way out. So we have a subject matter expert here. Can you kind of tell everybody the importance of having a plan and knowing your way out?
Yeah, absolutely. We tell people to have a plan, and we tell them where the resources are to develop that. And we're here to help get people out of harm's way. As a last resort, we encourage people to leave, and that's where the MDOT highway system comes in place. Sure. And so our message is not, we're going to take care of you. It's okay to stay here. If they tell you to leave, you need to leave and have a plan. And there's a lot, MDOT has resources, and there's a ton of resources out there, what to do, what to take.
Sure.
And but just get in your car and leave. But if you're going to stay, we don't want you to stay. If you're going to stay, we're going to bring you to a shelter. But what people need to understand is, especially in a devastating event like Hurricane Katrina, it's a really strain on the system to take care of people in that kind of catastrophic event where, you literally lost everything, and now you're dependent on the government, and we're now responsible for taking care of you.
That's true.
And our ability to do that, it depends on the event, and it's up to local people. They don't understand how these emergency management agencies work. They think the federal government's going to come swooping in and take care of everything, and it doesn't work that way. Yeah. It's local Harrison County and MDOT and MEMA, and we need to be prepared to take care of ourselves for a week, basically, sustain life, and we are, and we have that experience, but we don't want people to have the perception that, I'm just going to stay here, and if there's another Cat 5 Katrina, FEMA's going to come swooping in. And after a Cat 5 event, FEMA sends one guy originally to the emergency management agency, and he's point of contact for what the county needs. So it's not like the federal government's coming in here building you a new house.
That's right.
And it's just tough on local governments to
even
respond.
The notion, or I guess the possibility that I could be, totally dependent upon the government to save me in a situation like that, because it could be such that, like you just said, storm comes in, it may wipe out everything. Just kind of knowing that, I want to have some type of plan in place so that, because folks depend on you too to make those decisions in situations of crisis like that. And getting that plan together is not necessarily just for you, but even folks, your dependents that are counting on you to get them out, too. So by all means, spend some time and think about what happens when the storms come in, and put a little plan together, sit down with the folks and the family, and get that all out. I mean, even I can remember doing, even like fire emergencies, in school, fire happened, you knew where to go, or, situations. Why not in your own personal life at home,
So the problem with people locally like myself, we've been through so much of this, and depending on the severity, how concerned you get.
Yeah.
If it's a 1 or 2 or 3, that don't get your attention, but 3 and up, it gets your attention, and you never really know where they're going to go. They're getting really good, the weather services, at predicting landfall within 2 days, so it's much better than it used to be. But we have a lot of people that kind of get caught up in it. They misjudge it. It's like, I don't want to leave, and then, oh, well, Cat 5's coming tomorrow, and they can't get on the highway because everybody waited to the last minute. Y'all know that, and it's happened in Florida and a lot of places. And you just got to have your plan like we're talking about, and your resources, and have your decision ahead of time. In this situation, I'm going to leave. I can tell you personally, I've already talked to my wife. I'm going to retire in 2 years, and we're leaving.
Gonna go ahead.
We're leaving.
Gonna hit the coast train
right
on
I'm
up.
not. I got insurance on my house. I have family here. But I'm going to get my wife and the dog, and we're leaving. I'm not going through that.
Go explore and see what else.
Yeah, I mean, a cat 5 when I don't have to, no.
That's right. Well, hey, like you said, you've been here through all of them, you know.
Yup.
And so very similar to this, it's kind of just a funny point on that. You know, one of my best friends in the world, he said, I've been riding dirt bikes for 10 years, but I never had an accident until I wasn't scared of it anymore. You know, the day he was not afraid and it was no big deal was when he broke his leg. Kind of, I'm sure it's a little bit of a similar situation,
That's right.
you know.
Oh, yeah, well, don't just take it from MDOT.
Yeah.
Take it from Kevin at the Coast Transit Authority. You know, have a plan and get out when you need to get out.
That's right.
So
Wrapping up, last couple of things here. Just future goals, challenges you guys are facing or dealing with. It really may not be anything as far as challenges. I'm sure there are future goals that you guys want to incorporate or expand upon.
Well, things are really changing in transit arena in terms of type of services we're providing. So some of the stuff we've done historically, like fixed route, is not what we need to be doing. And people are looking at multiple forms of transportation. And so we're like every other transit system is what type of service do we need to provide to continue to be relevant? Relevant meaning people are using it.
Right.
And so we're analyzing what type of service we need to be providing for the next 15, 20 years and looking at modernizing and bringing in some technologies. And, of course, that's always challenging. And that's probably our biggest challenge is getting it right when we make our next 15, 20-year plan, getting that right, especially if you're going to invest money in
Sure.
it. So.
I guess a small side question on there. Have you guys looked at any, or is that a conversation even happening? Autonomous and EV type vehicles for transit?
We're operating the first pure battery electric vehicle in public transit in the state of Mississippi.
oh yeah.
We're running a lot of propane. So long term, our small buses and medium-sized buses, we're going to run propane. We're phasing out all diesel engines now and going to gas.
Oh, wow.
Propane. We're looking at EV vehicles for our bigger buses. They're very expensive.
I'm sure.
And they're reliable. They're not experimental anymore, but they're very expensive to buy up front. You save a lot of money operating, but there's a lot of range issues now. And we're actually looking at some hydrogen.
Oh, wow, really?
We may have a hydrogen fuel cell project. We're talking to a company about
awesome.
possibly doing hydrogen. So we're kind of taking a wait-and-see attitude towards evolution in the heavy-duty EV vehicle, whether it's going to be pure battery or hydrogen, and see. And so we're doing pure battery electric now and looking at some hybrid.
That's
so
neat.
some hydrogen hybrid, which is hybrid. So we're pretty much on the cutting edge of technology, looking at things here.
cool.
I've mentioned before on the podcast. I think we've seen some of these autonomous, but I've never ridden in one. I don't know how comfortable I feel just yet. And I know the technology's getting there, and Elon's on top of it, but
That's right.
it still makes me nervous.
There you go. Well, you want to take us home?
Yeah, that's right. Let's do it. Just we love to get out and see the town, see Mississippi, and go check out places. We had a great meal today at Shaggy's local establishment over here. Paul got a cheeseburger, so y'all give him grief. But we want to know: is there, do you have a favorite? And I know maybe easier said than or thought than said to identify a favorite around here locally, but maybe even not right around here. Is there maybe a hole in the wall somewhere in the state that you don't get to go by very often? You got a favorite food spot?
Well, there's a little bed and breakfast right over here that's really, really good, locally owned, that we go to, and a lot of good food here, a lot of different restaurants. Don't really have a favorite restaurant. We got, call it the circuit.
That's true.
But a lot of locally owned places, people that do it really well. Like Salute's is one of the favorite places we go to. That's not a hole in the wall, but
That's right.
It seems like Italian theme, but they have a very diverse menu and very good food. But I could go on and on. This is a food place, and
That's right.
this is it's not just seafood. It's good food.
Well, see, that's when I think about seafood, I just honestly that's the coast as a whole to me. It's either the actual seafood or just I look at food down here and want to eat because to me you can get on a balcony and it doesn't really matter which dish you're eating or being served. When I'm overlooking the ocean and the waves and the beach out there, it's a great meal.
So if you come
No
to
doubt.
Gulfport and you eat lunch and you eat a cheeseburger, that's not.
See?
That was
that-
bad.
That's not good.
It's okay. We're gonna make him drive.
Never
Home.
again. Never
You
again.
you're missing out.
We're gonna make him. His punishment will have to be he has to drive home.
All right.
What if we asked you? So let's see. If you have to, if you you guys are in a hurry, you got to hit a fast food spot. What's your go-to fast food?
Be Popeye's fried chicken.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Can't beat it.
We can agree on that.
Yeah,
Well,
we talked about eating Popeyes on the way down today, actually.
There
And
you
then
go.
last fun one for you. We talked a little bit about some music and growing up and different things you listen to. If you had to pick maybe desert island or remote island, you're gonna be on it. You had to pick one. Who's your
I listen to a lot of different genres, like we talked about. I grew up on heavy metal and
That's right.
still listen to that. I would say my all-time favorite band was probably Led Zeppelin.
That's awesome.
love Led Zeppelin.
So,
Mikey
I mean,
Flood in our division would love these answers very much.
Can't go wrong with Led Zeppelin.
He is a rocker, just like Mikey. Would love that. That's awesome, man. Yeah, for sure. Well, Paul,
Zeppelin's good stuff. Yeah, let's wrap things up. Kevin, thank you so much for
Thank you.
hosting us. And so we usually do kind of a standard outro. I'll include our hurricane evacuation information. So visit gom.com/hurricanes. You can download our hurricane evacuation guide. It's been updated for 2023. You can also check out a hurricane evacuation checklist for everything you need to have before you get out of town. So we'll just wrap things up there. Thank you for all of our listeners for tuning into the Extra Mile podcast. You can watch and listen to episodes by visiting gom.com/the extra mile. Thank you to our editor, Drew Hall. Katie Hornsby has left the building. Thank you, Drew Hall. And remember to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, @Mississippi DOT is the handle. And remember to drive smart out there on Mississippi highways.